Hi everyone, I'm Aniss, and today I want to talk about characterizing the VPN ecosystem in the wild. This is a joint work with my colleagues Lukas and Oliver from Max Planck Institute for Informatics and Ingmar from BENOCS. With the rise of remote work during the pandemic, many people have used VPN connection to secure their connections and to access work-related data, which is also sometimes confidential. So it's important to investigate the security of VPN protocols and VPN connections. And of course, there have been some previous work in this regard. However, all of them investigate commercial VPN ecosystem. In this work, however, we want to characterize the VPN server ecosystem in the wild, basically every VPN server that we can have in the internet. And for that, we use active measurement approaches to detect the VPN servers and then to analyze their TLS security. After that, we use passive measurement techniques to detect VPN traffic in a large European ISP.
Hi, I'm Lukas, and I'm going to take over for now to talk about our active measurements. And as a first step, what we were trying to do is to detect VPN servers in the wild. And for that, we sent out initiation requests, meaning the first request of the VPN connection establishment. We classify the target as a VPN server if our response is accepted. And based on those responses, we create our own VPN server hit list. We target the whole IP version 4 address space as well as an IP version 6 hit list containing roughly 500 million targets. Based on our VPN hit list, we then perform a follow-up analysis where, first of all, we conduct some TLS measurements, where we inspect the TLS certificates and perform a series of measurements to try and detect potentially vulnerable servers. We also fingerprint the servers with Nmap and try to detect the operating system in use and probe for our open ports. There is one limitation to that approach, and that is if there is some kind of cryptographic key material required in the first request already, because in those cases we cannot get valid responses in the wild because we are simply not able to authenticate ourselves. The protocols that we could actually detect with that method include OpenVPN, IPsec, SSTP, and PPTP, and the protocols that we unfortunately could not detect in the wild include WireGuard and Cisco AnyConnect. Now, to break down the results of our VPN server detection, we detected 9.8 million servers for IP version 4 and around 2.2 thousand servers for IP version 6. We also had a look at their ASs, and we found that most of them, especially the top ASs, are large ISP networks. Looking at this upset plot here on the left horizontal bars, we can see the amount of servers per protocol that we could detect, and we can see that we detected by far the most for the IPsec protocol. The vertical bars show the intersection of those 4 server sets, and the included sets are indicated by the dots below. So, for example, the second bar on the right shows the servers that support all 4 protocols, and the largest bar on the left shows the servers that support both PPTP and IPsec. In conclusion, what we can take away here is that only a few servers support more than one protocol, and that the IP adoption is very low for VPN servers as well. Since the primary purpose of VPN servers is secure communication, we conducted a follow-up TLS analysis to try and make assumptions on the security of the servers for the ones that are based on TLS, including OpenVPN over TCP and SSTP. First of all, we had a look at the TLS certificates, and for OpenVPN, we found around 160,000 certificates with 130,000 unique fingerprints, and we found that around 4% of the certificates were already expired. A substantial amount of over 2/3 of the certificates are actually self-signed, and we found over 14,000 different certificate authority organizations, which is quite a heterogeneous distribution. Comparing those results with SSTP, we find slightly less certificates, but this time around 9% of them is already expired, which is quite significant. And still around a quarter of them are self-signed. However, this time we found only around 2,500 different certificate authority organizations. The main thing to note here, though, is the substantial amount of self-signed certificates for both protocols. Next, we performed a TLS vulnerability analysis where we conducted a series of measurements to try to find potentially vulnerable servers for several attacks. And all of the attacks, apart from Heartbleed, are TLS downgrade attacks, meaning we try to actively downgrade the cipher suites or TLS version. And for Heartbleed, we probe for the OpenSSL Heartbeat extension, which is the underlying factor for the Heartbleed vulnerability. For OpenVPN, we found a substantial amount of vulnerable servers for 3 attacks in particular, including RC4, Poodle, which relies on SSL 3.0, and also for Robot, which is based on TLS RSA ciphers. This looks very similar for SSTP, though we found much more vulnerable servers for all of the 3 attacks. And here we have to note that SSTP is generally not recommended to be used anymore, and our findings strengthen that recommendation even further. As a conclusion, however, what we can say here is that we found only a few outliers for the more critical vulnerabilities, like, for example, the Heartbleed attack or more severe downgrade attacks targeting very outdated export cipher suites. To learn more about the VPN server system in general, we try to fingerprint the servers with Nmap. And first of all, we try to detect the operating system in use. And we have around 600 guesses for the operating systems for 1,000 servers per protocol, and found that Linux appears to be the most frequently used operating system. There's a few exceptions. For example, for PPTP, compared to the other protocols, we have slightly more guesses for hardware products, and for SSTP, we have slightly more guesses for Microsoft products. We also tried to detect other open ports and created this heat map here, which clearly shows that ports 443 and 80, as well as some other HTTP-related ports, are the most frequently used ports, not only for the TLS-based protocols, but for all of them. There's one particular outlier, which is port 1723, which is very prominent, especially for the PPTP servers, simply because 1723 is the default PPTP port. In general, however, what we can take away here is that a very large number of VPN servers appear to be web servers as well.
Now that we have detected VPN servers in the wild and we have analyzed their security, we want to take a look to see if we can find VPN traffic in a large European ISP using this VPN hit list. For this reason, we take a look at traffic volume and traffic pattern of the traffic that is using these IP addresses. We also do a comparison with the existing approach by Feldman et al. There are 2 approaches in this regard. Port-based approach takes the port numbers used by VPN protocols and filters the traffic based on them. Domain-based approach, however, takes the domain names and filters the traffic based on the domains. When the domain name have VPN and doesn't include www. To exclude web servers, we take the traffic as VPN. For that, we use NetFlow data from a large European ISP and domain names from DNS records at the resolvers. And if we don't find any DNS record at the resolvers, we just take the reverse DNS lookups. So with this approach, we found DNS records for 23% of the IP addresses in the VPN hit list. And taking a look at these IP addresses, from the top 10 domain names, we see that 5 of them are commercial VPN providers. Also in the traffic that is filtered with our VPN hit list, we see WireGuard traffic because we see port numbers that are used by WireGuard traffic by default, and that may be an indication of coexistence of multiple VPN protocols on a server. So now let's take a look at actual traffic pattern and traffic volume of VPN used when either of the 3 approaches are used. So if you take a look at this figure here, you see on the y-axis the normalized VPN traffic volume, and on the x-axis you see time. We did this experiment over a week. So the first line here shows the traffic captured by the domain-based approach, the VPN traffic actually. And then the next line here shows the port-based approach, which already shows a little bit higher VPN traffic detection rate. Now you see the lighter orange line here, which is a traffic that is captured by VPN hit list, and it's already showing the highest VPN traffic detection by our approach. And when we take a look at the VPN traffic that is captured by all of these 3 approaches, namely in this black solid line here, we see the different diurnal patterns in weekdays and weekends. So here you see that in the weekends we have the peak in the evening, and in the weekdays we have the peak in the mornings, which means that people go to work and they use VPN connections for their work, and in the weekends maybe they use they stream something in the evening. And now if you take a look at the total traffic in the ISP, not only VPN traffic, but the total traffic, the dotted line here shows somehow the same pattern over the week. So we always have the peak in the evening. So we already see a difference between the patterns from the VPN traffic and the total traffic in general. We also see that VPN traffic contributes to 4% of the total traffic in this ISP. So in summary, we tried to characterize the VPN server ecosystem in the wild. We actually detected VPN servers in the wild for 4 different VPN protocols, and we analyzed the security of those protocols under vulnerability to TLS attacks and found out that SSTP servers are actually more vulnerable. We also did a passive measurement and found out that our Apache detects the most VPN traffic compared to the previous work. Finally, if you want to take a look at our VPN hit list, analysis code, and also our custom scan modules, you can take a look at this URL here or by using this QR code. Thank you very much.